Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, Fans of Serif Software and the Affinity Designer and Photo group. If you are fairly new to Affinity Photo and for that matter photo editing in general, you may be slightly daunted with the amount of options and tools that are available. So I just want to sort of help ease you into this slightly by showing you one type of adjustment, and these are the adjustment layers, and these can be accessed either by coming to the adjustments tab, which lists all the various adjustments that you can add, or as I prefer to be able to see the layers by coming to the layers tab and clicking on this half black and white circle here and having the list of adjustments this way. It's a personal taste, it just saves me having to keep coming from adjustments back to layers all the time. So I'm going to use this image here, which I got from Pixabay.com. It's a perfectly nice image. It's of Vauxhall Bridge in London, but it is maybe a little bit flat and sort of needs a bit of zing to it. So this is what I changed it to using adjustment layers. So I may have slightly overcooked sort of the orange in the middle, but I hope you think it's a slightly more interesting image than it started out. You don't have to use the same settings as me or even the same image, but it just shows you what you can do by just adding 5 or 6 adjustment layers. So if you want to use the same image, I will add the link to this Pixabay image in the description for this video. So let us start. Now the first adjustment I want to add is the levels adjustment. So like I said, I will click on this half black and white circle and come up to the top to levels. Now you got the three sliders here. You've got black, white and gamma, and up here with the histogram, which shows you where all the pixels are in the particular image you have open. So this end is the shadows or the black pixels in the area, this end is the highlights or the white pixels in the area, and the middle is like the mid point between the black and white areas of the image. So as you can see, most of the pixels are in the middle of the image. So if I bring the black level down, you can see this white line here, it will make the whole image darker. If I move the white level to the left, it will make the whole image lighter, and the gamma, which is the midtones, move it to the left, move it to the right, you can make it lighter or darker depending on where you want to go with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the black level to about 6%. You can see by this number here, and the white level I'm going to bring down slightly to about 91. You can just click inside the box and type the number you want. The gamma, I'm going to type this one in because it's a lot easier to get the number I'm after, which is 1.118, and then just press on the return button. So as you can see from the levels here, we have the original image, which is the background, and we now have this new layer, which is this levels adjustment. Now if you wanted to sort of finish right now, this sort of, if you like what you've done to it already, you could just click merge and it will merge that layer into that layer, and you can no longer make any more adjustments. But if you just click on the X, it will close down this box, but it will leave that levels adjustment there as a new layer. And if at some future date you want to come back and tinker it with it, you can just double click on that square icon and it will bring back the tool, and you can make further adjustments. So it's always, I think it's always best to not merge if you don't have to. Leave the level available for future adjustments if you need it. Now with pretty much all, I'm not 100% certain whether it is all, but I'm thinking it's pretty much all of the level adjustments have a layer mask attached to them. And the layer mask is represented by this white icon here, square, which means it has a special mask attached to it, and when it's white it will allow the effect to show through. But if there's any black on that layer mask, I mean, if you disregard the little black and white circle that's here, that's just to show you that it is an adjustment layer. But if there's any black on this layer mask, it will hide the effect. So if I painted black somewhere on this image at the moment with this adjustment highlighted, I will hide the effect of any effect that I have currently made. I will be doing that a bit later, but I don't want to do it to this levels layer. Now if you want to see what the difference was between what I've done and how it started, on the right here you have little boxes with ticks in them. So if you just click on that box to remove the tick, that is what we started with, and that is what we've got with just one adjustment. So let's move on to another adjustment. So I'm going to again click on this black and white circle, and this time I'm going to select curves. Now curves is a very sort of tricky thing to replicate again and again, because there's no sort of real numbers to go by. But basically this is pretty much like the levels adjustment, but it's a bit more what's the word I can use, finessed. But basically again, all the pixels are over this side of the image, and this side of the image, this is where all the shadows are, and this is where all the highlights are. So there's not many pixels in this side of the scale, but if you move this line up and down in certain ways, it will affect the image. You have two anchor points going from left to right or from down to up, but you can add new ones. So I'm going to click there, which is like the intersection of those lines, and I'm going to click a bit nearer to this bottom, and so now I can just click on these and move them, and I'm going to raise the top highlights ones just slightly up, and I'm just going to lower this bottom one slightly down to make the shadows a bit darker and the highlights just a little bit lighter. Basically you're after sort of an S shape, which will give you more contrast. And like I said, it's very hard for me to give you a specific point of where to put this, because there's no sort of places where you can input a certain number. It's sort of basically done by eye, so every time you use this it will not look like the last time you used it. So my end result will look different each time I sort of do this. So again, I'll just close this down, and like before, you can click on the tick just to see what it was before and what it is like now. So we're now starting to get a bit of zing into the image, so it's not as flat as the original one was. So the next adjustment I want to come to is called HSL, but it basically stands for hue, saturation and luminosity. In this case you can boost the colors or the luminosity of the image, but this time I just want to change the overall hue of the image. I just want to sort of bring out the reds a bit more, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this slider to the right, and so I mean, as I say, if you move this you can change the overall hue of the image. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type this one in, and I'm just going to put it on 10, and then again close that. So as you can see, that has made that a much orangier, redder image. Now the next one I want to add is vibrance, which has a similar effect to the saturation slider in the HSL adjustment. You can, drop the vibrance down and make it almost black and white, or you can boost the vibrance right up to the 100%. Now the vibrance is slightly more subtler than the saturation slider in the HSL adjustment. It only sort of boosts colours in certain the areas that really don't have that much colour. At least that's how I understand it. So it just sort of helps bring out some of the colours that are probably weakest in the image. So I'm going to put this right up to 100%, and I'm going to close that. Now I don't know whether you can see this on the screen, but this has sort of made the blue up here and up here slightly mottled. It's starting to sort of have an adverse effect. So I want to sort of knock back the effect that it's having on this corner, and this is where we're going to paint on to the layer mask. So you need to get your paintbrush tool, and you need black to be the foreground colour, so this will be the colour that is above whatever colour you have set. It should be black and white by default, but you want to make sure that black is your colour. And then you want opacity at 100% and hardness at about 0. And the paintbrush size depends on what image you're using, but now I'm going to paint. It looks like I'm painting on the image, or it will do when I start doing it, but you won't see black appearing on the image. What will happen is you will see black appearing on the layer mask over here. So if I just hold down the left mouse button, click and paint over this area, when I let go, as you can see, the black is now on that layer mask, and hopefully you can see that that sort of mottling effect that was happening to this blue sky up here is gone away. Let me do this side. I might do a bit of the blue water down here. I'm only trying to bring like the orange and red out of the sky, not so much. I mean, obviously I want it in the reflection, but I don't want it necessarily affecting too much the edges. There we go, I think that's about it. So hopefully you can see that that icon now has black areas on it where I have just painted onto it. So we're moving on to our next adjustment, which is going to be the white balance. So I'm going to click on that come up to white balance. Now white balance, again I'm not 100% sure of if I'm totally correct in this, but it's basically you can alter how it should have looked at the time if you'd had your white balance set correctly on your camera, because you can set white balance for being indoors or under neon lights or in a cloudy day or a bright day, so you can correct your images to get them to look correct, but you can just also use it to make the image much bluer, much redder using the tint. The white balance. The tint slider below will make it sort of more purpley or more green. I think the tint balance slider is more adapted for black and white images. You can make them, it will have the same sort of effect as the white balance does with color pictures, but it will help better with black and white pictures. Again, I'm not 100% certain whether that's true, but that's how I sort of understand it to work. That's not to say you can't use it on color images, because I'm going to do that. I'm going to boost both of these up to about 20%. There we go. So again, it's boosting the colors, especially the orange in the middle there. So I will click on this cross here. So if I just show you the before and after, hopefully you can see that it has made this a bit more redder in the middle. It's made it sort of greener on the outside. So again, I'm going to paint onto the layer mask. I'm still on the paintbrush tool. I'm just going to knock that green effect off of these blue areas to bring back that blue, so it's not so green, which is not very natural looking. Keep the sky blue, there we go. That's it. Right, I'm happy with that. Just again do a quick on and off. Yes, I quite like that. So next thing I'm going to add as an adjustment layer is a lens filter, which is down the bottom here. Now by default it adds orange. In fact, it's the only colour it lets you start with. You need to double click in there, or single click actually, and then you could pick a different colour by just clicking on a colour you want to add, but I want to keep this orange filter because it's the orangey red that I want to bring out in the sky. I'm going to leave it at 50%, so I'm just going to click on that and close that. But again, I'm going to paint on to the layer mask to take that effect away again from the blue areas in the sky, because I don't really want orange and red up there so much. So right, I think that's about, there we go, that's about it I'll do. Right, so the last adjustment I want to do is I'm going to put yet another levels adjustment. We have one at the very start, but I'm going to add another one. So click on the adjustment thing, come up to levels. So as you can see now, when we first did levels, all the pixels were sort of in the middle of this histogram, and now they're sort of leveled out slightly, and there's more pixels over here in the shadows because we've made the overall picture a bit darker. So the only adjustment I want to make on this one is the gamma. And it's very difficult to get the precise adjustment by moving the slider because it's only going like point something or other. So it's easier for me to type in the figure that I'm going for and that is 0.858, and that is just sort of brightened up the whole image, because what I'm after is brightening up the center of the image. Let me just close this down. Yes, I want to brighten up the center of the image because it was, let me just turn it off, it was sort of much darker overall, but now I want to brighten up the image, but I only really want this effect to happen here in the middle. I still want to sort of keep the edges darker. Now I could take a lot of time and paint on this and try and be precise, but I'm going to sort of cheat slightly by using a gradient, and this is the tool just above the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to use a radial gradient, and I'm going to come to the center of the image. Now if you have snapping, which is this icon up here, if you have it on, as you get close to the center of the image, which I can't find at the moment, it's here somewhere, yeah, you get the red line that goes horizontally, the green line will go vertically, and if I click and then keep the button down and drag it to the left, I can draw a line across the screen. I will hold down the shift button just to keep it a straight line. There you go, and let go when I get to the edge. This will be our gradient. Now I want it to be white in the middle and black on the outside, so that it's painting onto the layer mask, and because the middle will be white, it will allow the effect through, and the black on the outside will bring back the darkness in the edges, because we are hiding the effect of that adjustment I've just made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this white square at the top here, and it will give me a representation of the gradient that we have here. And I'm going, this is currently set on white and the other one's set on grey, so I'm going to click and highlight that one, click on the colour, and I'm going to make the colour black. So as you can see from this representation here, the middle has stayed lighter and the outside has brought back some of the darkness that I wanted. You have a middle adjustment here that you can alter how much that gradient is affecting this image. So I can keep the center of the image sort of white, painted white in the center of the layer mask, and keep the blackness on the outside edges. So let me come off of that tool. So that is pretty much as far as I want to take this. At the moment the top layer is highlighted. If I hold down the shift key and click on the bottom layer, it will highlight all of those images, layers, and if I just click on one of the ticks, it will take them all off. So that was a start image and that was a finished image. You may not like the adjustments I've made, you may make different adjustments, but it does show you the power of adjustment layers that can have on your image. I mean, I've not looked at many of these adjustments. Now you can alter the brightness and contrast, tinker with the shadows and highlights. You can make it black and white. There's all sorts of different adjustments you could make. This is just a quick look at probably the ones you're going to use the most, especially levels, HSL, white balance possibly, and vibrance. They're probably going to be your first go-to adjustments. So hopefully that has been of some help. Don't be afraid to experiment with different adjustments, and like I said before, if you want to go back to an adjustment, you can just double click on it and it will bring up the box, and then you could make alterations. So it's always best to keep your layers available so you can go back and make new adjustments. All you need to do now is to save the image or export it, give it a new name so it won't clash with what the original file was called, and you will always have the original file. So hopefully this has been of some help. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.